Today I'm going to show you some really quick and easy processing tricks to make your photos pop and up their saleability using Adobe Lightroom 3. So let's take a look at this first photo. We've seen this photo in a previous issue, and in that issue we cropped it. So I'm going to show you how using this crop tool right here. It's the little one that looks like a rectangle with a grid inside of it. And when you click on it, you get the rule of thirds grid, and you can just drag in the edges and crop it however you'd like. So I'm going to crop it the way that we did during the previous lesson. And then, as you'll see when you look at this, there's a little bit of a gray haze over the photo. It looks a little bit flat, and that's really typical. Generally, photos come out of the camera looking a little bit flat, especially if you're shooting in RAW. So there's some really quick, easy processing tricks you can do to fix that. One thing could be to raise up the exposure just a little bit. Already that improves the lighting in the photo. And then another thing you can do is to come down here to the tone curve and adjust it just by pulling up on the upper right hand corner here and down on the lower left corner here. And what that does is it brings out the brights and it darkens down the darks just a little bit to give your photo a little bit more dimension. So let's look at how we're doing and look at our before and after. Here's our before, and here's after we cropped it. And then from the crop to the changes, there we go. Let's go to the next photo. So it looks like this photo has already been processed a little bit to turn it into a black and white. And I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to start by cropping it using the crop tool, just because we already cropped off the tip of her head here and the tip of her bun, so I'm going to make that a little bit of a deeper crop so it looks like it's really done purposefully. That. And then I'm also going to bring up the exposure a bit because it's pretty dark. There we go. You can also bring in some fill light, and what the fill light does is it lightens up the darker areas of the photo, and then pull in a little bit of blacks just to bring in some dark to the darker areas of the photo. And we'll apply a tone curve change to this one too, pulling up on the right side and down on the left side here. And let's look at our before and after. Here's our original and our final. This is such a cute photo. I kind of wish that the photographer had left a little bit of extra room here on the right and below this foot, but it's such a great capture. So let's see what we can do. Again, we have this little slight bit of gray film over the photo. It looks a little bit flat, and again, that just comes with digital photography. So let's see what we can do to fix that. I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit, and maybe pop in some blacks to the darker areas to give it a little more dimension. I'm going to come down here to the tone curve and do the same thing again, up on the right side, and down on the left side. And what that does is not only does it increase the difference between your bright areas and your dark areas, giving your photo more dimension, but it also adds more richness into the colored areas too. So let's look at our before and after here. Here's our original import and our final. It's just brighter and more rich overall. Alright, so this frog is, well, he's adorable for one, but secondly, the entire photo has sort of a green hue to it. You can tell because when you look at the person's skin, you can see that the person's skin itself is a little bit green, which is something that you definitely don't want. So coming up here to WB, which means white balance, over here I'm going to click on auto to see what that does, and immediately I can see that that makes a big difference in the skin. It's not quite an exact science, and you also just want to use your eye to see what you think. So I think that this is better than our original, and I'm also going to apply a tone curve to it, a little bit up on the right and a little bit down on the left. One other thing I want to say about this is you want to be really careful not to crop off anything like little toes or the top of someone's head. In this case, we're missing just the little pinky toe of the frog. So I've simulated what this would look like if we were able to catch the toe in the photo, and that makes a huge difference. Alright, we have a family here. Again, we see the same thing, sort of a gray film over the entire photo. So let's see if we can maybe pull up the exposure a bit. and come down to the tone curve again and just brighten the brights and darken the darks just a little bit. And if we go to our original and our processed, you can see that just that tiny little change made a huge difference. I also see down here in some of the whites there might be a little bit of teal color, so I'm going to try my color picker over here and hover over something that's supposed to be white. Let's try these pants. Oh, that's too yellow, so let's try again in another spot. That's better. In this photo, there are two things that I notice right away. I notice that the trees in the background lean over to the right a little bit, so we need to rotate it to fix that, and that there's also this shadow underneath the groom's eyes here, so we're going to try to fix that too. The first thing we're going to do is turn on the crop tool over here, and this also allows us to rotate the photo. So when you grab the edge of the photo, you can just drag it up a little bit there, and this grid appears, so I can line up the trees to the grid, and that looks pretty good. So I'll turn off my tool, and now to fix this shadow under his eyes, I'm going to try pulling up the exposure a little bit first, and I like what that does to the overall photo. But we still have this shadow here, so I'm going to take my adjustment brush and I'm going to set it for exposure, and I'm going to pull the exposure up, and then I'm going to paint with a slightly larger brush. I'm going to paint over this dark area right here. So I didn't see much of a change right away, but I can go in and readjust it after the fact. See, you can adjust way up, that's way too much. Down, he looks like he's wearing sunglasses. So it's just really a matter of finding the sweet spot. And that looks pretty good to me, so we'll turn that off. And another tone curve adjustment here could help out too a little bit. Pull up on the right and down on the left to make the brights brighter and the darks darker. And I think that's looking pretty good. Let's look at our before and after. Here's the original photo, and here is our processed photo afterwards.